It is my pleasure now to introduce the next and final official segment of our program, our success stories, members of our community who excelled in their studies and career to accomplish their goals. Can I ask the panel moderator, Mr. Hussam Shukra, to the stage to introduce the panelists.
Good evening and welcome to the 2026 panel of success stories. My name is Hussam Shukra. I have the privilege and the honor to moderate the panel of three of our outstanding achievers in life and academics. Today we also reflect on the National Australia Day. And as we all know, it's a controversial day in our calendar. To try to put in perspective the practical meaning of Australia Day. In my opinion, Australia Day is the celebration of communities made of migrants and refugees, first, second, and third generations, that participated in building Australia. A testimony to our panel today. Without their contribution, Australia Day will be meaningless. And the question here is why Australia Day is meaningless without celebrating the contribution of our migrants and refugees, first, second, third generations. Answer is very short. In short, it's a reflection of Australia's evolving identity, and that is critical to identify ourselves as our identity. Recognizing the contribution of migrants and refugees reflects how Australia has evolved into a modern, globally connected, multicultural nation. Their stories are part of the broader Australian story of innovation, resilience, and progress. It's also about celebrating diversity and inclusion. Australia is a multicultural society, recognizing the accomplishment of people from varied backgrounds highlights the strength that diversity brings. It encourages acceptance, understanding, and mutual respect among communities. Let me introduce our panelists today. Mr. Musa, here we are. He's Bachelor of Actuarial Studies and Bachelor of Laws. Louita Emmanuel, Doctor of Musical Arts at the Sydney Conservatorium of Music. And Saif Qadi is a Bachelor of Psychology with Honours and Master in Clinical Psychology. Please put your hands together and give our stars a big round of applause. I must admit, I was mesmerized to read their stories. And I believe their stories should be taught in schools and part of the curriculum. It is really, really outstanding stories. Let me start today with our first topic of discussion, which is your achievements and challenges. So let us start with achievements and challenges faced our distinguished panelists. I will start with Musa first, and I will ask him to quickly introduce himself, give us what's his achievements academically, and what does he do currently?
Hi everyone, my name is Musa, and in 2025 I graduated from the University of New South Wales with a Bachelor of Laws and a Bachelor of Actuarial Studies. Alongside studying at university, I taught at my university in the actuarial school, teaching courses from bachelor's level all the way to master's level, and now I currently work at a commercial law firm here in Sydney.
Musa, this is a really highly specialized area, and it's a very niche area of study. Can you also please tell us what was the driver to get into these fields, and a little bit about what was your aspirations?
Back in high school, I had a great love of mathematics, and I was very good at it, as well as a love for debating and mock trial and public speaking, and I knew that I could pursue both of those passions by doing this unique double degree. I didn't know whether I wanted to work as an actuary, work in finance, or become a lawyer, but I thought I would keep my options open and I'd give myself a unique double degree that could give me different perspectives no matter which one I chose.
Perfect, perfect. Can you also share with us some of your challenges you had in your career or life in general?
I think one of the greatest challenges, and I'm sure many other first-generation immigrants will face a similar challenge, is not having someone necessarily to look up to in the field that you have chosen to pursue, who has maybe shown you the path. Now I kind of have realized in my place of work that there are other Iraqis who are in positions much higher than me, but when I was back in university, I didn't know who to look to as a role model, someone to tell me who to have a coffee with or who I should probably meet up with. Whereas I've noticed maybe in other cultures, those opportunities are definitely much more available. So I think that was a great challenge, just knowing what path I should follow when there was no one before me.
I think that's a very good way of putting it. You've already achieved that purpose here by being in this forum, in this community, because we share some of your challenges, and that's what we're all here, hopefully, to build these networks and trying to help each other to get to some of those questions. Yeah.
Exactly. I hope that anyone who might be wanting to pursue a degree in law, pursue a career in actuarial, maybe even be able to look to me as someone who can give some guidance as well.
Thank you. Now I would like to transition into a different world, the world of history, arts, and music. Our distinguished panelist, Lolita. Lolita, can you please tell us a little bit about your studies and your...
Yeah, hello. First of all, I just want to say thank you to the Iraqi Australian University Graduates Forum for having me here. And also, I am so impressed by all of you, HSC graduates, hearing how eloquent you all are and speaking about your experiences. I definitely was not that eloquent 13 years ago when I came to get an award here. I also am really grateful to be here on Darug land. We've spoken about tomorrow and how big tomorrow is as a day. It's a day of mourning for Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander people. It's a day that comes with a lot of sadness. And at the same time, it's a moment for us to reflect on our rich, multicultural communities that can also, we can also reflect on our relationship to First Nations communities whose land we live on and benefit from.
I appreciate all that. I just want to highlight some of your achievements,
yes.
your field of work.
Yes, we'll get there, yeah. Well, I am a musician, I'm a pianist, I am an artistic researcher, which means I use what I do as a musician to ask big questions. And I'm also a radio broadcaster. I present for ABC Classic.
When I read about Lolita's achievements, it's really mind-blowing of how many things Lolita has been doing, working in different fields, and here's a list of some of the things I quickly captured from your bio is your performance in classic R&B and hip-hop, Grammy-nominated producer, Sony Music artist Ran Clapham.
I'm not a Grammy-nominated producer, but I have worked with Grammy-nominated people. One day, we'll see.
But this just highlights the talents and the experience you have, and it's really adding up to how much you can deliver and contribute to our community. But it's also your participation in this teaching pianos and an occasional tutor in the Sydney Conservatorium of Music. Can you tell us a little bit about those activities?
Yeah. So I'm doing my PhD. I'm about to finish at Sydney University, but I also teach and lecture there in music. A lot of students actually come through in the first year and they come right out of HSC, and we often have conversations about how to grow and develop our critical thinking, and I think, that's a big part of what I do there. My project at the moment is on Assyrian heritage and just bringing my culture to my instrument, but it's also taken me to Iraq as of 3 years ago. You're looking at me with very expressive faces.
Very, very, very exciting.
Yeah.
But and lastly, and not least, is you're currently nominated to presenting ABC Classics new at the new national program, Luminous, airing in 2026?
Yes.
You'll be...
It started
Actually,
already. You can listen to that. It started. It's on air at midnight, 12 a.m. on Sundays. You can listen to me on radio, 92.9 FM.
Oh my God, that is really impressive. Let me quickly jump into our next panelist, Saif Qadi. Saif, a little bit introduce yourself. If you can introduce yourself to the audience, your field of study and your work.
So, hi everyone, my name is Saif. I graduated with a Bachelor in Psychology and continued to kind of further my education with a clinical Master's in Psychology. Presently, I am working in the Department of Education, and I also run and manage my own psychology clinic.
Tell us a little bit about your passion about understanding human minds and where is that passion that have led you to?
That's a long story.
Look, 20 seconds.
Yeah, I'll try. When it comes to psychology, I think the foundation of it is the interest in why do we do the things that we do? What motivates our behavior? And what stops us from achieving the goals that we want to achieve? So these are all ideas that I was kind of playing around with, especially with wanting to further understand the mind when I was in high school, actually. And it was a very abstract goal to try to figure out what I want to do in uni while I was in high school. But I like to think I made the right decision.
I think that is a very noble thing that you think you're doing. And just if you can share with us one of your experiences at, let's say, at schools, like how you could help some.
Sure. So currently I am working with both high schools and public schools as a school psychologist. Aside from the regular duties of just seeing, students on a one-on-one basis, whether that's to help with attendance, whether it's to help with family issues, HSC stress, assessment difficulties. One of the things that I have been passionate about within schools is helping students adjust as they transition between major stages in their schooling. So that's from preschool to kindergarten, year 6 to year 7, and year 10 to year 11.
That's marvelous. That's really noble. Thank you very much for sharing all your stories and your experiences and your achievements. Let me jump quickly straight into the next topic that we want to just cover swiftly, is the identity and belonging. I mean, we're all members of this community, and we always think about Australian identity, what it means to every one of us, and you being in that space academically and in the workplace. I'll just quote one thing from Dr. Anne Ali. She's an Egyptian-born Minister for Multicultural Affairs, and she quotes, multiculturalism is fundamental to our Australian identity. There's a lot of titles, words, terminologies, but in terms of practically, what does that mean to us, to you in daily life, hearing these words? Lolita?
To clarify, what does that...
The identity, how does multiculturalism shapes our identity? How do you feel, how do you reflect on that?
Yeah, I think definitely here it does, and just thinking of how rich the Western Suburbs is and how much that, just to hear different communities from different places also share words from each other's languages, like that's a beautiful aspect about that. So it's something that's definitely shaped my worldview, to really understand how diverse our world is, not just our country, but just to hear so many stories around the world, but also to learn about the parallels, so many parallels across so many communities. A lot of us have come to Australia fleeing our homes, and I know that's very much the case for people from Iraq, and have found refuge here. And that's one of the ways that we can connect, and we have connected.
Let me hear from Musa and see what he thinks in terms of identity, and how does that you reflect on Australian identity?
I think the idea of an Australian identity has been very divisive in the media recently. And to me, what it means to be Australian is, for the most part, at some point in the past, every one of us, no matter where you're from, has migrated to Australia, except for our First Nations people. So we are all immigrants in some sense. And that means that wherever we've come from, we've left behind the bad, but we also bring the rich and fruitful goodness of our own cultures. So what does it really mean to be Australian? Well, it means to be multicultural. It means to bring the best from all across the world and help make this country a more prosperous place for everyone.
Absolutely correct, 100%. Safe, being you see people with different sort of crisis, maybe. Did you come across any sort of a problematic issue that suffering from an identity crisis type thing?
I think within Australia specifically, we're in a very unique multicultural sphere that is very difficult to replicate anywhere else on Earth. We're in an environment where individuals are seen as individuals. They're not seen based on the color of their skin. They're not seen based on their heritage, their religion, their background. They're seen on their actions, their behavior, their contributions, and their attitude to the people around them. So when it comes to identity, I feel like my experience is, professionally at least, is the identity of an Australian is the identity of who you are within your community. It's how you fit into the system.
No, that makes 100% sense. I mean, I hear all these views, and they're all correct. I mean, that's what, we always try to understand, the different views and hear the impressions and from different members of the community. No, thanks very much. I quickly run through this. I have a segment or a topic around belonging. Again, it's related to the identity, and in particular, I was going to touch on the Australian values. How do we see ourselves, practicing these values, around, the core values, the fair go, freedom, democracy, equality and respect, rule of law, mateship, and given the current debates, politically, what's happening in Australia and across the world, how does that? How do you reflect on this these values, and where do we? Do you see that it's really being practiced, or is just a words in websites? Lolita, what do you think? Quickly, and if you have any comment on that, or current values,
Yeah, I think there are so many privileges that my family has been able to experience by coming here. There are things that were not possible in Iraq, and my father, he sought political asylum here for his views, for just being proud of who he was back at home. And so there are definitely privileges that we have here, but at the same time, it's something that we can continue to work on and improve, because we can see that that's not necessarily working as best as it could be. So I think we need to have more inner reflection as a nation, across communities and with each other, and consider how we can also develop more responsibility to each other and our First Nations communities.
I just want to comment quickly on this area. I know we've sort of covered it a little bit outside this forum, but given the short of time, I just want to drop something on the one of the values which is talked about: freedom and democracy, which is commitment to parliamentary democracy, freedom of speech, and so on. I just want to bring, because we are members of this community, this country, and we care, we feel responsible about anything that happens. And I just want to highlight one of the episodes happened just recently at the Adelaide Writers' Festivals, when the committee invited a speaker from Palestinian backgrounds, and then suddenly was withdrawn and created that controversy. That is definitely wrong, and we just want to make sure that these things does not happen again. It is wrong, and we should recognize that whatever happened there should not happen again, because that's against our values. We either believe in values, or we just say, we don't care about any of our values. So that's, I want to just include that as part of our record. I just want to finally quickly talk about, one of our specific things related to us as Iraqi Australians. And I just want to talk about the Iraqi Australian story. How do you feel about being an Australian of Iraqi heritage? Given that I'm not going to go into some of my research I've done in Google AI and what Google AI thinks about the Iraqi Australian story, but let me. And by the way, Google AI, when it was asked about the Iraqi Australian story, it mentioned in the end that a lot of Iraqi members of the community, they're trying to rebuild their lives in communities like Fairfield, New South Wales. So it was recognized that Fairfield being the hub, the representation of Australian, which puts a lot of pressure on residents of Fairfield to please reflect the nice things about Iraqis. Okay. Quickly just ask Musa, what do you think about the Iraqi Australian story and just your impressions?
To me and my family, my parents fled Iraq right after they were married. They went to Greece, where I was born, and then we came here when I was only 11 months old. So this country has given us so much. If not for this country, I would not have been able to study. And
I'm going to stop you here about giving us, and as in giving. It's not actually. I wouldn't say give. I would say provide opportunities for people to grow, to contribute.
Yeah, it's definitely given us those opportunities to allow us to study and work and have a nice, prosperous life. And I think what it means to be an Iraqi Australian and be a good representative of Iraqi Australians is to also give back to this country through our studies, through our professional work, and through our own extracurricular endeavors that we give.
Remind you that a lot of those institutions, like educational institutions and health, they're run by migrants, and a lot of them are of Iraqi descent. So while we say given us, but we have provided that facilitation to enrich and to grow. Quickly, Saif, what do you think about the Iraqi Australian story before I wrap up?
Look, for me, the Iraqi Australian story is a bit different. I think in 1999 was when my father had left us to immigrate to Iraq, and we all came in as refugees. This I would probably very definitively say was an opportunity that was given to us. Having rejoined and come to Australia in 2005, I can definitely say that the education, the open arms, the community supports, the SSI, the Salvation Army, all these organizations, right? You mentioned they are, powered by that migration force. I would say they're powered by the Australian force. Each one of these people who've come from different countries, who've settled and called Australia their home, are Australian, right? Mm-hmm. The Iraqi Australian story essentially becomes the Australian story. It becomes the story of individuals who are seeking a better life for their family, for themselves, for their future, who found a way to become Australian, to identify with a land that is welcoming and full of opportunities.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, really well said and well described by Saif and Musa. But now, let me get to the final thing that we want to do at this forum is, I want to ask Lolita to give us a little bit. Lolita has been involved in production of a film, and the film is about performing Assyrianness. It's a very deep-rooted in the history of the Iraqi Assyrians. So can you please give us a little bit of overview of that film?
Yeah. So what you're about to see is a performance from a film that I produced and performed in for my doctorate studies. It's creative work that we have to do, along with writing a thesis. And this is a performance that tells a story about not just, well, first, my experience as an Assyrian and my community's experience as an Assyrian, but also a story that many Iraqis can relate to. And it actually features propaganda footage by ISIS when they destroyed Mesopotamian artifacts at the Mosul Museum. And this was devastating. It was erasing our history, but also erasing the connection that many of our communities in Iraq, indigenous minority communities, the connection that they have to these symbols that remind them of home. And so in this performance, I wanted to create another way to reconnect with those symbols. You know, ISIS, they might try to destroy that history, that heritage, but they cannot prevent us from reconnecting in other ways and remembering this rich history and memory of home.
No, thank you very much, Lolita. Really, when I read about it, when I heard it, it was really emotional, and it was very heart-touching. And we're actually going to leave you with that film. You're going to see it. It takes only about 3 minutes. But before we do that, can I please ask everyone to put your hands together for a big round of applause to our panelists with their 2026 amazing and aspiring professional members of our distinguished community. Thank you very much. Thank you.